Together again.
Yes,
Sorry that last time we taped the program with you, we were all caught up with a scheduling problem.
Okay.
But now we can go and take the full 58 minutes to let them know all about this force of nature actress and so forth, Susan McIntosh, and it's good to see you.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here.
Welcome in the audience to Conversations. Our guest today is Susan McIntosh, and she is an actress and a prankster, and she is also a scholar. I'm here to tell you. She's interested, and she has a great and very interesting story to tell. We did a program taping with her that got abbreviated. We're going to be able to do it in great length now.
Thank you.
Susan, welcome very, very much to Conversations.
Thank you very much. It's so wonderful to be here, my friend.
We started before, and we've run into each other, and we had a little thing where we were working together in control room where you were doing sketch comedy and that sort of thing, which was revelatory to me, the way it works and everything.
Thank you.
But please, as we did with the last piece that we started that did not air, because it was so short, but could you share your background, where you were born and raised, and background a little bit, and we'll talk some about your life's experience and then talk some about, well, theater, multimedia, communication, humor, and a few of the matters of understanding the human condition.
Absolutely. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Well, I was born and raised in San Francisco. And I think that was a huge influence for me. Just basically the fact of the matter is that's where so much of our revolutionary consciousness in terms of the 1960s was blossomed. And
I think so, yeah.
It's just in the water. It's just literally seeped in the water there.
Yeah.
You have to breathe it and live it to truly experience, I think, great culture. I think people are really, we are often born of where we are, and whether we choose our birth or we happen to, by the virtues of chaos or karma, we end up there, but I feel extraordinarily fortunate to have grown up in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Both my parents are wonderful extroverts, both self-taught.
Yeah, autodidact.
Autodidactic,
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
a great, honorable term, yeah.
My father is Australian and ran away from home at the age of 14 and joined the Australian Navy and had wild adventures in World War II.
Okay,
and immigrated to the States and did much like Malcolm X, taught himself the dictionary on the bow of a ship.
Okay,
and met my mother.
He was in the Australian Army? Or Navy, yeah, right, okay.
And fought in the islands, too, against the Japanese during
in the Second War.
In the Second World War.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
My mother was an airline stewardess.
Okay.
And they met on an airplane.
She was an American?
She was an American.
Yeah, right,
Fell in love in first class.
Oh, wonderful. In first class?
In first class.
Yeah.
She was a model and an airplane, a stewardess, and dated Frank Sinatra for a while and ran with the Rat Pack and had a whole experience in the 50s and 60s of being in that kind of elite
Great
world.
company to be in.
Great company
in that time.
In that time. And my father was a very suave, British-sounding intellectual, and it was a wonderful combination of both.
I had occasion to talk with my friend Margaret the other day about Australia. And it occurred to me, and I wasn't sure, so I went and looked it up, and Australia is about the exact same size in terms of square miles of the 48 states, discounting Alaska.
Wow.
And we have a population of about 300 million in the United States, and Australia only has a population of about 20 million on a land size of the continental United States minus Alaska. Well, it's very underpopulated.
It's underpopulated, and yet it shares, I think, many kind of our value system. It's almost a turn-of-the-century place, and it has a kind of a manifest destiny scenario, which unfortunately can also coupled with sort of the negative aspects of that, which is no respect for the native population and a level of entitlement and white settlers versus the indigenous people, and this kind of experience where you have kind of a Wild West mentality that has seemingly permeated the culture and is less sophisticated, that obviously needs to shift. And it's almost like they've still stuck within the turn-of-the-century mentality of that kind of determinant ideology of manifest destiny, as I said, and entitlement.
That's interesting. Have you been there yourself?
I've not, and my mother told me this spring she's going to take me.
Good. Go to Australia and go there.
Very much so.
Yeah, they have an interesting accent. They have people, you have some stars coming out of there now, don't you?
Well, my father never wanted to take me. He always felt it was a place he'd escaped from and was thrilled to do so.
Really?
He was,
okay.
He felt it was truly the outback. It was the sticks, both intellectually and physically.
The whole of it,
the whole
including Sydney, Melbourne, and everything
His sense was
like
there's nothing there.
Really?
Love your relatives, but there's nothing there, and when they can come over here, which they did.
And he feels better about the Bay Area of New York, or I mean the Bay Area of San Francisco.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The ideology being such that it was an expansive consciousness, really, the Bay Area.
But isn't it something to have a country that size? A great deal of the outback is desert, but a great deal of the central United States is desert.
I think that evolution
and so few people.
Well, its evolution has to come through rubbing up against each other. I really think that. I think that the consciousness of the population gets smarter when you have to interact. And if you're completely isolated, it's why the difference between the Midwest and, say, the coast. If you're isolated on a little farm somewhere, you're not going to have the didactic discourse that,
you
that
have in the
forces
Lower
you
East
forward.
Side or something.
Right.
There's more happening.
We need each other to push the envelope and to push the consciousness forward. And you can't have it if you're isolated. You're just going to be isolated.
And you don't think it helps that we got an internet that's connecting everybody?
I think that.
Or what do you think the ramifications of that are?
It's a wonderful idea, but I'm not sure people are really using it for. They're using it for porn and games, or they're not necessarily reading Al Jazeera and the Guardian.
Well,
it depends on how you use it, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're necessarily using it properly.
Well, I know it's sort of apocryphal. Mencken once said, "Nobody ever went broke underestimating the intelligence of the American people."
That's absolutely right.
And so that's sort of a nose in the air kind of attitude toward the folks.
Well, that's P.T. Barnum. I mean, he was a showman, and he understood that. And if you turn on, most channels of the television, you recognize the lowest common denominator still rules.
It's what the market tells us.
It's what the market tells us.
It is where the market tells us. And even our newspapers and so forth tend to be that. I think we're losing our newspapers. I think, the industry seems to be drying up. There's no business model. I mean, even the New York Times seems to be in trouble financially.
Well, on a certain level, I think that they sold us out during the war, and I think that they've become a propaganda machine, and I think a lot of people have lost respect for them. I mean, the journalists failed during the Bush administration. They failed, and they were not exercising the ability of the press to truly ask the questions that they should have been asking. So I feel that they're an antiquated entity that should go by the wayside.
Should go, like evolution, right?
There are things they failed.
Disappear. 99% of the species that have ever existed no longer exist.
Unfortunately,
it's been a process that is like that.
So save the trees, let it go. It's an old model.
Save the trees and let it go. You don't have to print all those papers,
That's right? Let it go.
Yeah. And certainly save some of those original forests, those sequoias that they cut down to make a deck or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is really something. Back to your parents again, because I know when we started, I hadn't realized it, but they were both, if I'm not mistaken, great aficionados of the great James Joyce.
Well, that's my...
I don't know how you can do better.
I really don't either.
He's the greatest writer of the English language, I think.
That's what I did my
particularly
thesis
if you're interested in understanding the evolution of technological developments and its implications. And consciousness.
I really
unconsciousness.
And unconsciousness, both. But I think it's important to talk about my father in relationship to the Australian idea of expansionism, because I think that given that was what allowed me to go from San Francisco to New York to be continuously questioning things and pushing things forward. I think that frontier mentality, though it's rooted in not necessarily the most positive aspects. It's oftentimes rooted in brutality and might makes right, but it also is rooted in the idea that anything is possible. That
is interesting, because Turner had the idea, you're familiar, I presume, with the idea of the frontier being a place where people could escape to. Daniel Boone would go, he could go and advance, and we had the western frontier in this continent, and then they could move to the frontier, but then it closed.
And then there's something to be said about the West Coast mentality. So who are the people that would go to the very edge of the continent?
Yeah, what about that? How did San Francisco come to be the cultural lodestar in a certain progressive sense, I wonder? Why San Francisco?
I think it's the coast.
Why
I think it's
not?
The landscape. I think
it's
the landscape. It's the landscape of beauty. It's the landscape of the edge. You're literally, truly on the edge of it. You can see the Pacific, and then just the experience of standing at the Pacific and seeing nothing but haze, nothing between here and China, as my father says. And that sense that you really are looking at the edge, and you thus anything is possible at the edge. As Hunter S. Thompson said, the only people that understand the edge are the people that have gone over it. And it's very true.
And push the edge, beyond the edge.
Gone beyond it. I mean, there's something about land mass that locks us in, I think, and that's why England in so many levels is locked in, and old world country is locked in. I had the experience of driving cross country and being in Kansas.
England or here? Oh, in Kansas.
I drove cross country in England as well on a motorcycle one day. It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
But being in Kansas and seeing nothing but the flatness of the cornfields.
I know, it goes on forever.
It's horrendous.
As far as you can see.
Literally and physically trapped. And there's something about the landmass, I think, is absolutely determining consciousness of the people.
Really, that's very interesting.
Absolutely.
That's very interesting to me as a geographer, you see.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we did geography. That's very interesting.
I think it's intuitive. I think that the monkeys amongst us that decided to keep going are the ones that were the most highly evolved. Those that stayed in the flat said, I have enough to eat here, this is fine.
There was a saying.
Middle of Kansas, I mean, I think
there was a saying came out of, I don't know, sociology or whatever, in Europe about how freedom resides on the mountaintops. Freedom was a redoubt or something on the mountaintops, and there was that, I don't know, and those flat surfaces like that. There are people who revel in that. I saw a thing, New York City is very popular for the young, but it's very unpopular, or urban areas. They had a piece, David Brooks in the Times yesterday was writing, and he said that the urban areas the young are there, but that for the older people, it's not the case. You know, it has to do with age.
Or maybe it has to do with the fact that you you crave nature as you sort of get centered in oneself and the ambition falters. So much of the city is, alpha-driven desire to achieve and success and strive. And once you I think you come into maturity, you realize at a certain level that what is important is the natural world, and what is important are the communication mechanisms that you've established, your friends, your family, your communication.
Maybe so, yeah.
And
but it is.
Cities are very isolating too.
The most popular city in the country now, according to Mr. Brooks and the sociology, is Denver. And it's interesting there because the landscape is important and that kind of thing. But back again to Mr. Joyce, I thought he was a fantastic, The Wake and so forth is a fantastic reading of the tech, and you mentioned and used the word consciousness, and consciousness is a concept, and I was just talking, was I talking to you or somebody else? I'm not sure about Wikipedia. Did I mention that to you? Because I just talked to a fellow and saw him talk about Wikipedia, and they're trying to put together an encyclopedia of all knowledge. And that's really interesting that they've got everything, and they got links and everything, and an encyclopedia of all knowledge is something that is intriguing to me, because you have technological systems for being able to do that you couldn't done in the 6th century when you were trying to copy a piece of vellum with a thing. I mean, the technology of communication and the extension of consciousness and so forth through the technology is something that's really informing, if not the modern age, the postmodern age that might be emerging into the future as we begin to look ahead. And James Joyce was one who could read that. And they have a saying, the artists are the antenna of the race, that they are ahead of the normal consciousness and so forth. It seemed to me he was a reader of the implications of electronic communication and this kind of thing, that was really somebody who was a real pace setter.
He said, well, all the world was contained within Ulysses, then the belief in that the human body itself resonated all experience of human consciousness, and that it was all within ourselves, and that a collective unconscious existed, and that you could know all humans through one human, and that's pretty extraordinary.
Who said this is
Joyce?
Really? Okay.
And that Ulysses itself was a history of the human race. As he wandered through the consciousness of his own mind, he felt he wandered through the consciousness of all human species.
That was with Molly?
That was his lady.
Yeah, and the 16th of June is Bloomsday?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was great, and it was stream of consciousness, more than Faulkner or anything.
Oh, much more so.
And then nobody has ever quite written the way he did.
Well, you have to truly understand all of human history to be able to to be able to write it down.
All of history and all of existence and all of knowledge and so forth, to be able to go in that stream of consciousness way. Great. And that in your family, your dad was into that, right?
My dad was into that. He was very much into Kipling and the poets.
Kipling, yeah.
And he's a great oratory speaker, and he toasts lots of formal toasts.
A raconteur, maybe?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
And very much attending to the old traditions of oratory experience.
Okay,
and sort of private clubs that men go to, British men standing up and toasting each other and outdoing each other. together with poetry. Yeah, this kind of thing. I mean, what a wonderful tradition. I think my dad is very much a failed actor, or an actor in the human experience.
There must be a lot of failed actors because there's been so few real star success.
Yes.
In terms of the numbers that have applied.
The numbers that apply.
And why it is, I'm curious, because you are an actress, right? And you're also a prankster, which is really, is your dad a bit of a prankster? Your mother?
Well, my father
Where
is
did you get the prankster
My
gene?
father.
From your father?
Putting on
a bit
wigs,
of an imp?
Putting on wigs and walking around and being a bit of a nut. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, that's a good thing,
Oh,
I
very
think.
much so.
You ever see Dorothea Parker's thing, You Were Perfectly Fine?
No.
That's a story I'd just recommend to you. James Thurber was great and everything. Dorothea Parker had the thing, it was a story where You Were Perfectly Fine. Woman wakes up with her husband, they've been to a party and the husband's hungover. And the husband says, and she said, dear, you were perfectly fine. And she said, when you got up on the table and did a dance, they thought that was what you were perfect. And when you put the lampshade on your head and they all laughed, you were perfectly fine. It's a great short story. Along with Russell Baker, I think some of the best writing in a satirical vein. Satire is important to you, I guess, right?
I'm also a writer.
And
so
you are a writer, and you're also an actress.
And a professor.
Oh, that's right. Of course, you're a professor. You're teaching. What do you teach, by and large?
I teach English composition, which I analyze in the 20th century short stories, and trying to give, really, my attempt to give young people a critical eye. And today we talked about the difference between bonobos and chimpanzees, for instance.
Really? Okay, in your class. You just come from class now. Yeah,
to be able to illuminate to a group of 19-year-olds that there are different choices in the evolutionary scale.
Yeah.
Pretty extraordinary.
What is the difference?
Well, we're both 98% DNA, both bonobo and chimpanzee.
What's a bonobo? Bonobo's a type of
It's a type of a
monkey.
Chimp, but it looks very much like Mo from the Three Stooges. It has
Mo.
a part down the middle.
Yeah,
it looks just like a chimp, but the difference between bonobos and chimpanzees is bonobos have no war. And no infanticide. They don't kill the young. And the difference is that they deal with all their problems through sex. They solve all their problems through hugs and pleasure.
Yeah, where's Rajneesh now that we need him,
well,
right?
the females rule. So
the females rule in the bonobo realm. That's interesting. That's very interesting. That may be, there might be more wisdom in the bonobo line than we could.
Well, there's no war.
We might do well to study.
That's absolutely right. The belief is that we came from chimpanzees because we make war and we live in a patriarchal society.
We don't come from chimpanzees. We come from common ancestors of the chimpanzee. That's our closest ancestor.
That's our closest ancestor.
And you know,
bonobo is too, though. So we may be bonobo and just got misdirected.
That's really interesting. I didn't know about that. Send me a link. Send me a Wikipedia link, okay?
I will indeed.
Or
I just met an anthropologist who was studying bonobos.
We just did a program with an anthropologist. And anthropologists I never met an anthropologist I didn't like, or a sociologist, or for that matter, most all of the, the literary people and everything like. But it's also true that there is they've got the gene. Isn't it an amazing time to be alive? That so much knowledge is coming into our cognition now compared to the long sweep of human existence and so forth. It's just an incredible time to be alive, in my thinking. We're learning so much. We didn't know about neurotransmitters until about 30 years ago, the way the brain works or anything like that. But they got this genome, and they sped it up so fast. They thought it was going to take 100 years to map the genome, we got the human genome because of computer things, and that we're going to be swimming in bandwidth. We're going to be swimming in communication capability. It's going to go way past Moore's law as we get to carbon 60.
Right. Let's hope we have enough to say. I mean, that's the thing too. There may be 300 stations, but if I'm still watching fart jokes and Rich Housewives, what am I looking at? I mean,
remember Mencken, and remember Mencken. And Mr. Bailey, Barnum and Bailey. But that's there. But I mean, there's room for improvement.
Well,
there's room for improvement in the human dialogue.
In the evolution of the species, absolutely.
But they did have a thing where they take the human, now, and I'm not sure.
They've also mapped Neanderthal. Did you read that
recently? Did read that. I read that, and they've got
impregnating a poor chimpanzee with a Neanderthal genome,
that's really
and allowing it to grow, and they said that the difficulty morally would be, do you send him to Harvard or to a zoo? And I said, really, isn't it the same thing?
What's the difference?
What's the difference?
Yes, as long as you got the
as
internet
long as
in
you're not going
the
to Yale, it's okay.
Yeah, right. That's good. That's true. Yeah, and they've also got Nicholas Wade from the New York Times reported they got enough DNA to perhaps reproduce a mastodon out of history. It's amazing. But anyway, they did the human genome, and there's something, and Wikipedia is interesting because everybody can edit it, and it's just like a big, massive thing they're going to get, and it's
I don't let my students use it as a research guide.
You know, that's interesting. Is that true of academic people?
Yes, generally.
Okay.
Because they feel it isn't written by scholars, it's written by lay people. Now, whether that's snobbishness and foolishness, or whether it's intelligence, I'm not sure.
It's really interesting, the ethics and the morality and the mission statement of that. They want to, anyway.
They want to preserve scholarship.
Exactly,
legitimate scholarship.
Exactly the point that I'm talking now, because I'm sitting here talking off the top of my head, and I have a subjective thing in my head about whether something is correct or not in terms of some generalized principles or knowledge that we have and everything. And this thing I got in my head is about 89% accurate, I believe, even though it seems staggering in its implications. And that has to do with a genome. They can get a genome of an average, if you take that, let's say Homo sapien female, and an average Homo sapien male. And the difference, it's not just plumbing, the difference between the two is about 1.5% difference in the genome on the average between them. And that is the same differentiation between humanity collectively, 1.5%, and a chimpanzee. Well, so men and women, species. They talk about Venus and that. There are very, very different breed of cats. Now you're talking to me about the Bonami. Or
Bonobo.
Bonobo. Bonobo has a better alliteration, actually, than Bonabi. Yeah, bonobo. That you could do all kinds of poems off that and everything. And you're right. Anyway, life's interesting, and it's coming down. We're learning more and more, and you're learning a lot. And you're a writer, and you write very, very well.
Thank you very much.
And I'm here to say I was in the studio when you were getting ready to do an acting performance of somebody I'd never heard of who was very popular in the popular culture.
Amy Winehouse.
Amy Winehouse, who some of the people may know. I don't know who that is. I remember Katharine Hepburn and so forth. But you were getting into character, and I thought you were ill because you were getting, and then you did it. You did it's called acting.
Yeah.
And you were like a force of nature.
Thank you very much.
It was great. Did you ever find the tape?
We did find the tape.
You did find, and was I correct?
Yeah, we actually shot
was your performance?
Thank you.
That would have been your performance. And it was like incredible. You were talking in the Cockney or whatever that is she was doing.
Lower class British.
And I watched you getting into character, and I've never been in that kind of an experience where you have lines or you know what you're going to do. It's a very interesting thing. And the things you had written on the paper, the words, you had words that people are going to learn, and I had to participate.
Yes,
we're going to show me trying to do it.
You're actually terrific.
How I was not terrific. Oh, I was totally flummoxed because I could not do it. I couldn't remember the lines. I don't think, how does anybody ever remember a whole play?
I've done one-person shows where I've had to remember an hour and a half of dialogue based on cues and based on lighting and based on video behind me.
And you do an hour and a half of something you memorize, and does it always come out the same?
Well,
don't you have to get spontaneity in there and everything?
There are benchmarks that you know that you have to hit this mark and this mark and this mark, but then there's an illumination between those marks where you're going to have to hit that you can play a little bit for yourself. But I've written plays where and performed them, which is a three-person play that I did. I played Oscar Wilde, which was great fun, based on a weekend in the country. And because I'm working with other actors, there's no spontaneity because they have memorized their lines based on my lines, and they've memorized their action based on my action.
I've got you.
And so you have to have a consistency. At the same time, you want to keep it fresh for yourself. So there'll be a delivery shift each night for you that will enable the material to feel fresh and fun. Otherwise, it's going to feel stale. You don't want to be a robot up there.
That process is very complex.
It's complex. And there's a shamanistic quality where that, if it's really good, you forget you've memorized it, and you're hoping to have an authentic experience of really being this person in that environment, ignoring the third wall, ignoring the audience.
What's the third wall?
The third wall is the audience. You imagine that you don't see an audience. You imagine that there's a wall there.
I see.
Otherwise, you're too self-aware of being looked at, so you can't have an authentic experience.
Okay.
Of being, because the idea is that you're truly in an isolated environment, unless you're a stand-up comic and you're interacting directly with the audience.
Right.
You want to believe that you are wherever you are, in a country home in 1890s.
Jane Austen or something.
Or wherever you are,
right,
you're there.
Right. And then you've learned the lines.
And then you've learned the lines, you hope that you can forget.
So you know what you're going to say. That's the part that baffled me.
You know what you're going to say.
How can anybody know what they're going to say?
I don't know, but I don't know how to do math. So I know how to do that, but I can't do math. So, you know, the brain works in whatever way it works in, and I think that's the mystery of the universe, is that some of us are born to be writers or actors or professors, and some of us are born to figure out how to do plumbing and how to work on the spaceship and how to, you know, do what you do. And, you know, everyone has different gifts.
Yeah, I just learned a great...
It's extraordinary.
That little thing I went through, because I was just here to help like a yeoman, you know, to get the mics and everything, because I thought you needed somebody else.
We had an actor
Well, no,
problem.
but what I'm trying to tell you is I learned a great respect for acting. I mean, what it is that I hadn't realized just looking at it from outside, it's a great art form. And it's a thing that is of really, I mean, I learned that, and it was just odd to me. I learned a great deal in that experience.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm really glad to have given that
Maybe we could do it. We've got a clip.
Yeah, we got a clip.
You had them set up in the booth already?
I did indeed.
Is the one that we're talking about now?
Yeah, with you act. It's phenomenal.
Well, I'm not so sure I want to see this because I had no idea what the hell I was doing.
Well, you're absolutely hilarious, and we would love to invite you back to be a reoccurring player on our show.
Well, I wouldn't. Okay. All I'm just trying to tell you is like Stranger in a Strange Land, because I don't understand that whole process and everything.
There's an authenticity.
We're talking with Susan McIntosh, and I'm here to say, as an actress, she is a force of nature.
Thank you, my friend. That's
and
very
she
kind.
writes like an angel.
Well, or a devil.
Whoever put those words together that were on the page, it was the what do you call it, the script, was very clever.
Thank you very much.
It was very well done. Is that carefully worked out? Does that come easily?
Worked out and worked out. Read aloud, hit. I work with a writing partner now, and a producing partner, Albert Wilking.
Yeah, well, Albert, I know Albert. Yeah.
So I generally do the first draft. He'll come with he'll come with an idea. I'll write it down. He'll rewrite it with me. We'll play the lines. He'll come up with an idea. I'll come up with an idea, and we work it. I've never worked with a writing partner before.
Yeah.
That's been the first experience that I've had. Usually, I'm very isolated, and I just work by myself.
The words were poetically done and funny.
Thank you.
And very, very well connected.
Thank
you. It was like literature.
Thank you. Well, let's hope it. I hope it plays as for the cheap seats as well as the higher brow seats. You got to give something for everyone. Hopefully.
Yeah, but it must be fun playing in that realm. And also, you've got a great sense of humor. You have humor written into everything.
Thank you.
And I think that's really the grace of the gods.
That is the
humor.
Grace of the gods, and that truly comes from my parents.
Okay, set it up for us. This little clip we're going to play.
This is a piece called Proud Justice, and I am a judge, which is a wonderful position to play because I love being a judge, an imaginary judge, and you are.
You love being an imaginary judge.
Maybe
we could go into why that is. That you like to be in the position
of
authority to pass power.
Absolutely.
I see.
Dispensing
now
justice.
you're not just getting into the character; you're getting into your own character.
Of course, it has to come connection.
Psychological realms. We could go in great depth. We get on the couch and really go into all of these things. That,
well, I've talked to actors that don't go into therapy because they don't want to be healed. They want to have the shadow. They want to have things that they can't work out because if they work out their psychological problems, they have nothing to mind as actors.
That's really interesting. That's interesting. You think it comes, and so many people want to be actors. They want roles.
Well,
it's
so many
very
people want
interesting,
it, but they can't actually do it. I mean, very few people can actually act.
That's like what you call the method or something you were talking about?
Yeah,
is that Stanislavski?
Yes, that the method that you mine something within one's own experience. But unfortunately, most people haven't had any interesting experiences.
No, I don't agree with that. I think life is so damned interesting. I go around.
Only if you're critically aware of life being interesting. Most people are cows. No, they're grazing and they're eating and they're not producing. They're not critical.
Okay.
They're just passing through.
Well, maybe we better go on to the clip. You got a clip you're going to show what you did and everything like that. And so you set it up. I guess it runs a couple of minutes or something?
Yeah, it's called Proud Justice. It's the first tape.
And I'm in this.
You're in this.
I don't even remember. But let's run that tape. Now we're talking with Sue. It's called Proud Justice.
There we go.
Here it comes. Pump it in here, please.
She's tall. She's proud. She's Judge Trudy Proud, dispensing proud justice.
Quick and clean! Quick and clean!
All rise. I said rise, you lazy bitches.
Order! I will have order in my personal life and my professional life. That's how I roll, America. Watch and learn. Watch and learn.
Teach it, teach it.
Who do we have up first today, Bailiff Bob?
Today, we have Glenn and Glenda. Glenn is a former member of a boy band who had some moderate success in the Trenton area. However, he recently lost his job as an investment banker. Glenda is a yoga instructor who loves small dogs in sweaters and diminishing other people's self-esteem.
Wonderful. So what brings you two to this tragic moment before us?
He has no interest in me or in what I'm into. He don't listen to me. He don't listen to a word I say.
All it is yoga, yoga, yoga. That's all I ever hear already. Oy vey.
I didn't sign up for some old man lying on the couch all day in his sweats, playing the Wii, whining about his shattered dividends.
The compassion is flowing in this room like well drinks at happy hour.
Next round's on me.
The only reason you're divorcing me is because I'm broke.
Yoga, it's all about personal responsibility, personal accountability.
That Madoff bastard took all my money. I'm going to skewer that Madoff bastard and have him for lunch.
Any assets between the two of you left?
All she's got is that yoga asset.
Better than your sagging portfolio.
Can I get those boobs back? I paid for those boobs.
This saline is inside my body. You never will be again. I earned these boobs, one senior meal at a time.
I paid for those boobs.
I think it's a blessing that neither one of you selfish retards ever bred. And I think to preserve the great genetic soup, I will now pronounce you happily divorced. Remember, America, in these troubling economic times, it's better to try to make your relationship work. Stick together and recycle that garbage as opposed to throwing it out. But if that's impossible, you can bring yourself down in my court, and you'll get yourself some proud justice served up by Justice Trudy Proud.
Proud justice.
You're great.
I does not. You were great.
You were
No,
great.
you guys
You
are.
were great.
And that guy who was in
Hysterical.
front, wasn't he a nice guy? He's an
he's
airline
great.
guy.
Yeah, Ken Seifert.
I had a nice talk with him. Now I had a great talk with him out on the
very, very
we
smart.
were having a cigarette out in front of the thing. I had a great talk with him, and it was funny as all get out, and it was a riot talking with him. And that's when I say I get Academy Award performances every day, all day long. I'm
you
seeing
do.
like that. I see that way. Anyway, that's really good. That's part of a thing you're submitting as a.
We shoot a sketch
yeah.
comedy pilot.
Talk a little bit about it, because you
Very
and Albert
excited
are
about
putting
that.
together
We're
a
putting it
program
together.
here.
It's called Crazy Studios.
The faculty keeps getting better and better and better at MNN.
Thank you, my
We're really
friend.
getting into the big leagues with you guys.
Well, we're very excited. We're showing it to folks in LA and hoping to roll it into ready for primetime cable.
What have you got? You got a promo thing?
We have a
it's
half an hour.
Half-hour piece.
Pilot, yeah,
And this
and-
was a clip from that?
That was a clip from that. That's going to be a reoccurring
I'm on
sketch
your
thing.
clip?
You're on our clip,
I'm on
baby.
your roll?
You're on the roll.
Okay. Or no, reel. On your reel. You call it the reel.
Reel, yeah.
No, a reel is your clip. Yeah, okay, that's good. And you got that finished now.
Well, it's finished. We finished it this weekend.
And you like humor. You're just sort of wedded to humor, it seems to me. You don't do drama?
I have done drama, but I just finished a script, actually, which is drama. I'm a political, so political humor is fun, but sometimes drama is called for, and sometimes there are only things that you can say. There's certain tonalities you can take with certain things.
I guess that's true. Yeah, it's like life.
It's like life, and I just finished a screenplay based on a real event, and I'm doing it's a cops and robbers piece. It's a piece with a DA agent. So.
What's a DA agent?
DEA, a drug enforcement agent.
Oh, okay, right.
And, how funny can he be? I mean, he's pretty funny, but it's not hijinks. It's real life, and it's high stakes rolling, and it's guns, and they're dead people, and you can't. I'm not interested in making fun of that. So there's some light moments, but the general thrust of it is that it's a dramatic piece. So and there's some part of me that likes to be serious, but there's also, and even in that, I mean, Madoff took a lot of people's money. There's a lot of divorces that are happening that are right
all
now,
over the place,
and it's comic, but it's tragic, and I think those two things. I mean, that's low humor in there too. It's low ball, but it's also high ball. I mean, definitely low ball. I mean, the boob stuff is just ridiculously lowball humor, but you know, most folks that are in the midst of the scandal are kind of lowball humor.
Yeah, you mentioned Curly out of the Three Stooges.
Oh,
that was
yeah.
and the Marx Brothers, and
absolutely.
you know,
I mean, it's low and high. It's
yeah,
buffoonery, but it, you know, I mean, the Madoff scandal in and of itself is buffoonery.
I think you have to say Madoff because then you can say no. I think Madoff because he made off with all the money.
There you go.
They usually say they made off with all the money. You see, like that.
Absolutely.
And it upset a whole lot of people.
Well, I mean, if that's not tragic comedy, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And watching the economic shenanigans of
well,
the
you
last
always see
10
with
years.
the theater, you see the smiling face, and then you know it's
They're
cute.
always
It's the thing. It's there,
It's
and
the
it's part of
human-
the human condition and
absolutely.
everything. And
Absolutely.
you write. When you write, do you write? I think I may have mentioned to you a person I met, Alexandria Fuller. She's a writer, and she wrote a book. She's a Zimbabwean, originally settler, and she writes great. She wrote a book called Scribbling the Cat. I couldn't put it down. It was written, and when we did it, she said all of her, she thinks all writing, I'm wondering, you said screenplay. I'm thinking film. Screenplay is like film. All writing should be cinematographic. All writing should be cinematographic. That is, you're in it's like it's different than being just abstract, but to be in the environment in a screenplay kind of way. The wind, the thing, and all that.
I think we're a visual world. And
we're becoming multimedia.
Right, and I think that you can't isolate that the internal experience is one of vision. I mean, every short story is conjuring up images, and if they're not conjuring up images, then you're not doing your job.
Right.
We think visually.
We think visually.
I think
we always have,
or no? I think blind people
Oh.
even think visually. I think it's we put ourselves as as consciousness into the body of the narrative, and we see the world. That's why writing is so powerful. Is that you're able to transpose people and from their experience into somebody else's experience, but you're literally putting them in someone else's shoes, and they're looking out from those sets of eyes, and they're seeing the world through that other experience.
Yeah. But the writing of a screenplay is the writing of what that will become a film.
Yes.
Or let's say a presentation multimedia. So it's going to have trees. It's going to have wind. Right. Blow Up. Did you ever see the movie Blow Up? And they got the wind blowing and all this special. See, that's in the. You're writing differently if you have it multimedia in mind than just
writing
pure
differently if I know that I'm going to have to be in a studio with a couple of actors.
Sound
writing
stage.
Differently than if I am allowed to have a big budget and I can take it out to downtown New York.
That makes a difference. Then you bring in all the things like DreamWorks, and they can bring in all those kind of mighty multimedia. You would like to do work in film?
Well, I've made a feature film, and
Could you talk about it a little bit?
I made a student feature film called Circus Lives, and it was about a circus family. It was based loosely on a book called Geek Love, which was a book I really loved very much about finding one's own family and creating one's own family.
Why geek?
Well, they were a circus family. And it was the idea that geeks are people that are sideshow people that would be shunned by normal human experience.
There was a great movie in the 20s made about
Freaks.
Freaks, yeah. Was that Fritz Lang?
No.
No, it wasn't.
I'm not sure who it was.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, yeah. Okay.
But it's the idea that what is outcast is oftentimes what is most precious.
Absolutely,
I like that.
Yeah. I like that too. Yeah.
Especially as the world becomes more and more about perfection, I think we're missing that. True oddity is where genius lies.
Thank you. That's beautiful. That's poetry. Yeah. It's in the pattern recognition.
Absolutely. I'm not interested in a world full of Paris Hiltons. I would much rather have a world full of humpbacks and gap-toothed freaks. It's far more interesting. Which is what I'm very excited about in terms of this economic recession. I want them all to lose their apartments and go away. Go back to the suburbs. I want to see New York return to the place of misfits and intellectuals and the dispossessed and the difficult.
You don't think you could be an intellectual names, Iowa? Could you be?
I think you absolutely could, but you're very isolated. And again, we're talking about the idea that you need people, you need to rub up against people and share ideas.
Okay.
You can be the Unabomber and, be sending your little explosive ideas out into the world, but unless that's the danger of intellectualism is isolation. I really believe that. Then you're in your cabin and you're going crazy and you're not able to let it out.
You can be structured that way intellectually.
Yeah.
As well as physically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I understand that.
You need to be out amongst people. Otherwise, the brain is, the intellectual brain is a curse and a blessing. It's too much on certain moments.
like reality.
You need to get out amongst it and unload it on people before it takes over. you know, in many ways.
Umberto Eco, did he live a reclusive life? Or some did. Or Faulkner was down in Yazoo.
It's important to have
in
both.
a thing, you know.
You need to be able to be in it and out of it.
Yeah, and there's also differences between people. Some people
Absolutely.
are different than others. Some people need elbow rubbing more than others, perhaps to have a balance of which is important.
You need city as well as country, though. You need to be able to immerse oneself in the human soup. Absolutely.
Yeah. You think that's universally so, right? I'm not sure.
I think for the people that are interested in intellectual expansionism, it's a necessity. I think the city is intellectual expansionism.
Dublin was a good place for Mr. Joyce, wasn't it, at the time?
You have to get out amongst the human experience, or you isolate and vegetate.
Well, okay, I'm not going to quickly sign on to that. I think there are people that vegetate.
Oh, I'm not saying that vegetation doesn't happen.
Emily Dickinson was a recluse, practically.
Not necessarily. I have a friend that's working on a biography of Emily Dickinson, and I think that may be a misnomer.
Really?
She was a pervert, Emily Dickinson.
No, really?
Oh, my God.
Page 6 stuff.
Page 6 stuff. She had a brother, and Emily Dickinson was a lesbian, and fell in love with this woman named Susan, who then she instructed her brother to marry. So they had like a very strange situation where
they should make a movie out of that.
That's what she's working on.
Who's going to play her? Who's going to play her?
I'm not sure.
How about you?
Meryl,
would you like to play?
Would
you love to do it? Meryl Streep's too old now for that, right?
I'd love to play Dickinson. So and
Dazzle
then,
Graduate is a great poem.
And then the brother had an affair with the dean of Amherst that was in town. So the brother was bisexual, and then the wife of the dean allegedly was also having an affair with Emily, and that she was responsible for publishing Emily's work after she died. So things were a lot more interesting in that, and then
now this person who's doing the research, is that a Wikipedia thing, or is that the thing? And then one thing, realize there's no way you can really know someone else. You have a hell of a time understanding yourself. Right. I mean, in truth, in terms of all the nuance and everything, and that kind of stuff. I'm just putting that addendum to that.
Well, I think that's the mystery.
There is mystery there, isn't there?
I think that's the mystery.
One of the things that we're limited to is that we only have so much time for a 58-minute program with you. We could go on talking for 25 hours, and we will, perhaps in the future over coffee or something.
I would like that very much.
But you have another clip. I want to make sure we get it in so they can get the full breadth of your overall.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. This is American Gothic, which Albert, my partner, and I, we played the two archetypal American Gothic characters from that wonderful...
You mean from the Grant
Yes.
Wright? Yeah.
And we're observing, it's an internet series that we're doing called It's American Gothic, and we're observing the world through these strange characters that are from another century that are thrust into animation.
Is this part, it goes animated?
There's some
animation. You do animation? You and Winnie? I want to do a thing. I want to talk to you about that. I won't do it now, but I want to talk to you a thing about a concept for animation. Maybe we'll talk another time. Anyway, and this is the thing that you do, and is it an ongoing thing?
Yes.
Are there characters that are created like South Park or something?
It's an ongoing called It's American Gothic.
It's American Gothic is like a series,
it's
right?
It's a series on the internet.
And you have characters that are in there? And who are the characters?
Well, you're about to see them, the two farmers.
Okay, let's just run it then, and this is a couple minutes again?
Yeah, it's like a 30-second piece.
30 seconds, and it's, what's it called again?
It's
American Gothic. Okay, let's run that if we can get it queued up in the booth. We're talking with Susan McIntosh. There it is. That's American Gothic, all right.
I'm here to report to you some extraordinary events that occurred in the backyard of our farm just last night. I saw a series of flashing lights over the farm, and I went out to investigate because I thought it was the Chinese satellites coming home to roost. But in fact, I went out there and I got a strange metallic taste in my mouth that felt a little bit like an Altoid. And I put my hands out and the ground was hot. Now I'm telling you that was an alien spacecraft that I did see.
Well, I went around the other side and I didn't see any such thing. I think it was just a bunch of kids that went out there and cut down those crops.
Now, every child in our neighborhood of the farmland has very flabby arms because of all the fast food they're eating, so they are cutting nothing but school.
There is no such thing as a space alien.
Yes, there is.
No, there ain't.
Yes, there is.
No, there ain't.
1 in 3 people will be touched by a space alien, and I don't mean an illegal alien, in their lifetime.
No, they won't be. There's no such thing.
Yes, there is.
Wonderful. That's really fun. Tastes like an Altoid. Oh, no, that's really fun. That's all that's you.
Yeah.
You've got a great way with the language. That's beautiful,
my
poetic.
friend.
And
Thank
Albert's
you.
great, and
Isn't
that's
he great?
really fun.
It's like,
yeah.
It looks exactly like those
And you
two
got
characters.
that's kind of animated. You do that?
We do the animation. Albert does animation, and he does a marvelous job.
I didn't know he did animation, right?
Well, he does a lot. He does a lot of graphic work. We have another piece for you that's all animation.
Is it? You got it here? We can show us another.
It's the next piece.
Okay, we got another piece. Let's set it up by all means. That was really funny.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
really great.
We're going to be doing depression tips.
Oh,
those
good,
two.
good. That's
how to
good.
live through the depression.
How to get through a depression.
How to get through it.
Oh, do you mean the economic depression or
Yes.
psychological depression?
Well, I think
Oh, we'll
both.
get to that.
We'll get to that.
The economics likely to lead to the other. Okay, let's run that second piece if we can set it up. Maybe they don't know to set it up or what?
No, they've investigated it.
Okay, if we got another piece we could run. What's that one called?
Astro Heroes.
Astro Heroes,
And it comes
which
from
would
the
be
perspective
followed
of
on the same
aliens.
tape, I guess. Okay.
Yeah, it's on the same tape.
Okay, let's run it and take it away.
There we go.
Astro Heroes.
Hi, I'm Parsec Pete with the Astro Heroes. Have you ever wanted to take a primitive planet tour but haven't been able to afford it? Well, give us a call right now and get Lightspeed financing. Operators are standing by.
Hello, how may I help you? Can I interest you in one of our package tours? How about our exciting Feeding Frenzy?
Act now for our Feeding Frenzy tour. See the flesh-eating carnivores devour the other inhabitants of the planet. Watch their bodies grow to unnatural proportions.
Another one of our delightful excursions is Watch the Blue Planet Turn Brown tour.
Watch the human being foolishly waste their resources and sublimate their intuition. See the ancient combustion engines still in use. Smell the toxic residue of carbon-based fuels. Mmm, delicious.
Goodbye and have an unforgettable journey. Perhaps I can interest you in one of our most popular tours, Greedy Gremlins.
This is Parsec Pete signing off. And remember, for the best and most inexpensive tours in the galaxy, call the Astro Heroes today.
Astro Heroes.
Oh, that's Astro Heroes. That's good. You can just play with that stuff and do it. And you just, how do you come up with a skit idea? That's like a little skit.
Little
right?
skit. And he has been actually developing the Astro Heroes idea for a long time, where it's these space aliens that are basically watching us destroy ourselves and having a marvelous time doing so.
Yeah, from afar.
And then they occasionally come down and help us. But they sort of almost like the Greek gods will occasionally interfere.
That's what I had that very thought. I
experience.
talked to Maggie the other day. It must be the dogs probably think of us like what is the thing?
Delightful
The Clash of the Titans movie. And you got, who was it that was Zeus, the god, and then the gods, they think of the gods are up there watching them as they go through all of our shenanigans.
So it's very much similar to the
You think a
idea of
dog
aliens.
thinks of us that way? We're screaming and yelling or something, and all they care about is the bone.
Yeah, the
But you
food.
know they've got a different, you know what I mean? It's a different consciousness and
Yeah,
everything.
it's a different
So do you think
experience.
dogs think of us as like the ancients thought of Zeus?
Maybe.
Or we think of God, or that
I
kind of
think
thing?
they kind of feel
It's a
sorry
way-
that we don't have more hair. I think
Yeah,
they
or
feel
something.
sorry for us.
Yeah, we haven't got such
they
a
have
lovely fur
such
coat.
lovely fur.
I certainly feel that way about Humphrey. Humphrey is just an incredible dog. Have you met Humphrey?
I have.
Yeah, Humphrey is
Humphrey
incredible.
inspired actually quite a few skits that we were doing.
Does he?
Yeah, Humphrey
He sits up.
inspired. Yeah.
He sits up.
We inspired Humphrey. We have personal ads now for animals.
Oh, you do?
They're going to be airing on the next.
You're going to have animal personals.
Yeah,
okay,
animal personals.
That's
Trying
good.
to hook them up with
yeah,
each
is that
other.
going to be part of the whole thing?
The next episode.
That's
that we
a
do.
great service to the animal
Isn't it?
kingdom. Yes, it is. You know, all our brethren.
Yes.
Brethren, yeah.
Absolutely. It was, we're interspecial cross dating too. Possums can date golden retrievers. You know, we're multi-generational, multi-species.
I see that. That's really good. They have a thing with animals. What was it? There was something that came up.
Well, animals actually have their own
Wait a minute.
Facebook page.
Animals.
Facebook,
Animals have a Facebook page?
There's a Facebook for animals now. And my friend Mary Gormley the most famous animal I know is the humping dog from Sex and the City, which I did a little commercial with recently. And she has, Gidget Gormley has its own Facebook page.
Sex and the City is a series.
Yeah, who made
and
a
they
movie.
Had a humping
and
dog?
They had a humping dog in the film, which I'm very good friends with the humping dog.
No, really?
Yes, and I put the humping dog in a little ad that I did for Doritos.
Oh, really?
And the dog humped the Doritos on command.
Okay.
And Mary trained the dog, allegedly with chicken. You can train anything with chicken, which is good to know.
You mean chicken the food?
Chicken the food.
Because that's a treat that they'll do anything for.
Yeah,
they can be very shameless in terms of just food.
I like
All they want is food.
Right,
they're very direct
They're
that
direct.
way.
They don't beat around the bush.
I think there's some
It's
advantages.
admirable. It's admirable.
Yeah,
Because we are the same way, but we just disguise it with human trappings of ego.
You think that's what that is?
It's all about
we're just
food and sex.
Yeah, food and sex. That's all there is, right?
Like bonobos.
Yeah, like bonobos. That was interesting. We started off this program talking about that difference and everything like that. It's true. And the dog that won the Westminster thing, I like dogs a lot,
I do
don't
too.
you?
I love
Difference
dogs.
between dog and cat, right?
I
but
like
the
cats.
dog that
Dogs
won
have a
the
sentient
Westminster was a
consciousness.
Stump. Did you see the Westminster?
No.
It was right around the corner from
I
us
know.
on
Next
Madison
year
Garden.
I'm going.
But Stump won this year.
What's
Last
Stump?
year, that's his name.
Oh,
That's the
Stump.
name
It's
of the
so
dog.
cute.
Stump. Yeah. And he's a big dog, and he's old. He's about 10 years old.
It's good that the
And
senior
mostly
dogs are making a stance.
mostly those dogs, when the judge comes up to look at them, they jump into the,
Right?
Yeah, like that. And Stump, the lady was the judge to judge who is the best in. Did you ever see the movie Best in Show?
Yes, wonderful.
Wonderful. Anyway, to judge it, she walked up to him, and he just sat there. It was really
interesting?
funny. He reminded me of Humphrey.
That's very
He was
funny.
like Humphrey, Humphrey and his tail's wagging. And it's just a delightful thing. We can learn from them. But there's other things about what they can do with the animals, and we can get Maggie used to be talking, my friend used to be talking about, we ought to get animals on MNN talking about what it is they're like. But they can't get, we would just be putting words into animals' mouth. If we
Right.
tried to put a dog and say, don't cut down my tree, by which I have to pee or something, and we're going to say, we're just putting that in their head. I mean, we're not really getting at the dog. The dogs express themselves in a bodily, physical way that's very, very communicative.
Very much so.
So we can't communicate. We put words into their mouth. Hitchcock once said that he thought actors were like cattle.
Furniture.
Furniture, or you just put something.
Manipulate them around.
You just put something into them in that, but you can't
And
do
then
that
you
with the
mechanize
animals.
them.
But we can get the nuance of the thing. Now, you couldn't do that on literature, could you? Could you do it when you, like it used to be monks in castles with nothing but a tallow candle to write on a piece of vellum or something. You were pretty limited in what you could do. Now you can do animation. We got technology is, you know what I mean? It used to be different in the old days, I wouldn't have wanted to live in the 6th century.
Oh, they would have burned me in about 45
You think
minutes.
they would have burned you?
Oh, God.
Maybe you would have
absolutely.
been different if you were there.
Can
Can you get yourself into that head of going back into that, living
I
in that?
think I always would have been someone who spoke out and was difficult. Yeah, they didn't do too well with.
You know what they
difference
did
back
with
then.
people like that in
Oh,
Salem?
yeah.
In
Oh,
Salem,
not just in
they had
Salem, across Europe.
across Europe and across
30
the
million,
world.
30 million were killed across
Yeah.
Europe. I feel very strongly that I am a descender of that experience.
Yeah, Celtic.
Celt.
Yeah, Celt. Yeah. Oh, you're Scottish.
That's right.
That's right. I
Scottish.
remember we share that
I
because
did
we're
a
both
one-person show in Edinburgh 2 years ago.
I know, you got
and
some of
let me,
that.
I absolutely felt a genetic link to that place.
Mm-hmm.
It was unbelievable. I felt those people, they're fierce, they're funny, they're exhibitionists.
They fought naked practically.
The men and women
They
fought
were
next to each other naked.
Men and women fought naked in the fights. They just got naked in that cold. It's cold in
Fierce.
Scotland.
And they used to put lime in their hair, so their hair was white, and
Yeah.
they paint themselves blue. There's
There's
Roman
strange
accounts.
people, yeah.
Well, Roman accounts, no more strange than the Romans, much less strange in my opinion. So the Roman accounts of like the women and the men naked in blue, they're like, hell no, we're not getting off the ships.
Yeah.
Scared the hell out of them.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah,
terrified them. Took them forever to conquer
Have you
Scotland.
followed through on the book I told you about yet? I bet you haven't.
No.
Are you going to?
Well,
are you going to, young lady?
I
when
am.
You get around
now
to
that I
it?
have, now that I've finished
you're
the pilot.
wasting time writing
the
screenplays
pilot.
and things and pilots.
Oh, no.
You know the book I mean.
Yeah, it's how Scotland changed the world.
No.
How Scotland saved the world.
No. Get it right. You have to get the words right, darling. It is by Edward Herman, a serious scholar, serious historian, how the Scots invented the modern world.
That's interesting.
And everything in it. The thesis is the modern world, modernism, postmodernism, this whole bloody mess we're living in and everything, was more than anything else the result of the Scottish Enlightenment. It was the Scots that did it more than the French that created the modern world. So if there's somebody you have to blame for the mess that the modern world is, it's us. So, I mean, I'm not sure I like being in that position. Do you like being in the position of
Obviously,
the establishment?
Well,
you're going to, you know, you're going to be the establishment.
Better us than them.
Oh, really, you think, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But with them Scots, I think 60% of the signers of the Declaration of Independence of the United States were Scott.
Well, there was early rebellions. There was the rebels, and when you look at look at the English. I mean, the English were up against, were continuously.
Wait a minute, careful now, because I got a quarter English. You know. Do you have any English? Do you have any English in you
I don't
at all?
know. I mean, my father's
Maybe
Australian.
you can trace it if you get your DNA.
Well,
you can get it traced right back to where you want to do that.
Absolutely.
Would you like to do that?
Well, I'd
Would
like
that
to
be
do
an
that very
adventure? Could you
much.
make a series out of that?
Absolutely.
Could you make some skits out of that?
Absolutely.
If you do that,
Do a
I mean,
one-person show on
see,
that,
it's
for
endless
sure.
the things you could think about, the way you could come up with things and everything like that. I'm really glad you and Albert are putting on that program and coming along to MNN and putting it on the media and everything like that. I think that's wonderful. Having a good time?
Yes, it's wonderful. It's also incredibly stressful because we're boyfriend and girlfriend too. So we live together. We make art together.
That's a real difficult.
It's
thing. That's almost impossible,
almost.
isn't it? You know,
we've broken up about 17,000 times and gotten back together 18,000 times.
18 and a half, yeah, because it was last night. Don't forget, at the very end of the night. You know, remember that thing. You're not sure if that was a true
extraordinary journey. I can't imagine not doing it.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. Well, you've been in New York for how long yourself personally?
I came to Columbia to go to film school, so I've been here 12 years.
You did film school. You've
Columbia.
done that. So you do have aspiration for film.
Oh, yeah.
And you
I've optioned 4 screenplays.
You have optioned to whom?
One to Madonna. I did a Mata Hari piece that I optioned to her. Fortunately, it didn't get made because her people told her not to do anything first-person narrative after Evita, which is unfortunate because I think she would have been an incredible Mata Hari.
Okay.
So optioned that to her, and then we ended up...
How did that work out for you as the one who came up with the idea? Did they treat you okay? Or most of the options don't follow through.
Yeah, it's just sad because, you know, they don't exist unless they're in the world. Then I optioned another piece to Sins of Pictures. I'm trying to raise money for that for a long time, about an 18th century hermaphrodite. True story. I like first-person biographies.
Yeah, that's a good way to work.
But first-person biographies with female stars don't get funded.
Why?
So because we live in a patriarchy.
Evita was, right? We live in a patriarchy. Don't you think it's melting? Don't you think it's breaking down?
But until they start making movies in which
we have to let them know about the bonomis.
Dumb shoppers.
What do you call those things?
Bonobos.
Bonobo. I love it. Bonobo. It sounds like Bobo.
Bobo.
Bobo the bonobo.
Bobo the bonobo.
Yeah.
I'd like to see bonobos and greenlighting projects.
That's right. Greenlighting projects like that. Also, that could bring out the feminine principle, Gaia, that kind of stuff. You think we live in a time of maybe liberation or qualitative change in the human?
I hope so.
James Joyce had Daedalus say, "History is a nightmare from which I'm attempting to
Well, I'm
awaken."
very thankful that Obama is here. I hope that that's the death knell to the Puritans. And his first piece of legislation was guaranteeing women equal pay, which is basically saying women are human beings.
Who first signed equal pay?
Obama. Took to the year 2009.
Really?
He did unbelievable.
That?
First piece of legislation.
He's really ahead of the curve, don't you think?
First piece of legislation.
There may be hope after all here at the end
so.
here on Mount Sisyphus as we continue our long winding trail there up.
Let's hope so.
Can you say they're up?
They're up.
When you're talking to a mountain, up to a mountain. Anyway, your pleasure as President Susan McIntosh, Scottish and creator of some of this marvelous stuff.